An Afghan asylum seeker has been jailed for 15 years after abducting and raping a 12-year-old girl in Nuneaton. Ahmad Mulakil was found guilty of rape and 2 counts of sexual assault following a trial last month, having already admitted a further rape charge. He was also convicted of child abduction and taking an indecent video of the girl by the jury at Warwick Crown Court. Let's get reaction now from broadcaster, political commentator and former Conservative MP, Sir Michael Fabricant. Hello, Sir Michael.
Good morning. Good afternoon.
Well, indeed, great to have you on the show. We'll get to lots of stories, including the economy, the war in Iran and much besides. But I need to ask you about this breaking news story. It's devastating. And the aggravating factor here, Michael, is that this person shouldn't have been in the country. And that's the problem.
That's right. And from a very different culture to our own. Now, I'm going to be very careful now and not generalise, nor should anyone else generalise. Sure. Or make any great political advantage out of what has happened. Clearly, there are people who come here illegally. Actually, nobody should come here illegally, and we should stop them. But that's easier said than done. Starmer is rapidly finding out, or has found out. But it's quite clear that there are cultures where women and other people, minors, are not treated with the respect and the dignity that, of course, we do in Anglo-Saxon, Judeo-Christian countries. We found this with the grooming gangs in northern England. And one of the biggest crimes, I think, is not just the actual crimes that are committed on women and young children, but the fact that the police have chosen not to intervene for fear of being accused of racist.
You're absolutely right. And some of this is cultural. This monster who's been jailed for 12 years may not have been able to understand the sheer depravity of his crimes based upon where he grew up.
That's right. But that doesn't condone him at all, because, you know, I'm not a religious person at all, but I sort of think people do know the difference between right and wrong. You know, when you have consenting adults doing whatever they want to do, that's fine. But to do that to a young girl who is clearly not consenting because she's been traumatized is clearly wrong. And this person deserves everything he gets. Incidentally, I mean, one wonders whether in his country he would either have been lauded or he would have had, you know, might have been had his head cut off. Good heavens knows, you know. Cultures are very, very different. That's why I always find it marginally amusing when Queers for Palestine are demonstrating, when, you know, if they were to walk hand in hand in Gaza, what would happen to them is the same that happens to Palestinians, sadly, who turn out to be gay, and that's either beheaded or thrown off a roof.
What's strange, Sir Michael, is the progressive left will look at a horrific story like this one, this conviction of an asylum seeker for the abduction and rape of a child, and they'll say, well, there are British people with white skin who commit these crimes too. But that misses the point, doesn't it?
It does miss the point. I'm afraid if you look at the stats, and I don't have them in front of me, so I'm not going to go into them now, there are certain cultures where they are a small percentage of the population, and yet a huge percentage of people who commit this sort of crime and who are serving prison sentences, and others who are just not members of our community because all they do is claim benefits. You know, it's very, very difficult. I remember a friend of mine used to be involved in immigration and customs, and he was saying, you know, we do plotting of types of people who are likely to be either smuggling or committing crimes or whatever. Profiling, they call it. And then they went through a phase where they couldn't use profiling because it seemed to be anti-black or anti-Middle Eastern or anti-whatever. But sadly, it's a matter of fact.
Well, indeed, and I'm glad you're so cautious and judicious about not throwing statistics and figures around if they're not backed up. So how about this, Sir Michael, from the Ministry of Justice? This is data obtained from the Ministry of Justice by the Centre for Migration Control, who found that foreign nationals accounted for a quarter of sexual assault convictions on women in 2024. The numbers don't lie. Indian nationals accounted for the highest number in foreign national convictions in 2024, followed by Romanians and Pakistani men. This is a conversation we need to have.
That's right. Only 10% of people in the United Kingdom, I believe, we'll have to look up the stats, I don't have them in front of me, are actually of non-Anglo-Saxon, if you want to use that word. That's a phrase, actually, the French use. I rather like it. Of non-Anglo-Saxon, white, European, whatever you want to call it, Caucasian origin. So it's clear from the stats you've just given that a far greater percentage of that minority group are committing the crimes. And to have a situation where people are coming in illegally, as Ahmed Mulahil did, the man who's just been convicted, demonstrates, how we have lost control of our borders. And it's not just Labour, it's the Conservatives too. If Reform gets into power, I think they'll find it equally difficult to actually control it, or indeed restore Britain.
Now, Nigel Farage has been calling out these issues for many years. Have you had your head turned by Reform UK, Sir Michael? You're an iconic figure within the Conservative Party, but might you look at your position and back Farage's insurgent project?
I would do it I wouldn't join them. I have no interest in joining them. And I'm a member of the Conservative Party. Now, what I'm about to say may get me thrown out of the Conservative Party, but I'm going to tactically vote. For various reasons, I've got a vote in 3 different areas where I pay council tax in the UK. I can only vote once, of course, in a general election, because the law is you can only vote once in one assembly. But because there are separate assemblies for local elections, I have the capability of voting 3 times. Now, actually, in Lichfield, where I am now, we don't have elections in May, which is a blessed relief. But I do have in the 2 other areas, and I will look at the polling. And in one of the areas, the Conservatives have done extremely badly. It's in Wales. And I think I might be tempted to vote Reform there, because it's either them or Plaid Cymru.
What would you say to those who believe that Reform UK now, Sir Michael, are the true Conservatives, scrapping net zero, unilaterally stopping the boats, bringing down mass migration, ending wokery in our public institutions, cutting taxes?
Well, I love their policies. I do. And then you might ask, so why aren't I voting for them? Why don't I join them? I just don't think they're going to deliver them. I really don't. I mean, I'm in Staffordshire, Lichfield's in Staffordshire, and I think it's now just today the 4th or the 5th Reform councillor who's been struck off for various reasons by Reform. We're now on our 3rd leader of Staffordshire County Council, which is Reform, over the last year. I mean, I'm afraid the calibre of some of the people in Reform are just not up to it. Having said that, I tend to identify a lot more with people in Reform than some of the people in the Conservative Party, who I just think are Lib Dems.
So, Michael, why do you think the political right on both sides of the pond are split over the war in Iran?
I think we were very unwise, and by we, I say the Conservative Party, not to stick to the line that Kemi Badenoch originally had, which is that we should support the war. Now, that does not mean putting feet on the ground, soldiers' feet on the ground. That does not mean, I'm trying to think of other
airstrikes. Over Iran, which the President of the United States never asked us to do.
Exactly. What they asked us to do was to provide fueling stops at British air bases, which Starmer initially refused to do. And then he changed his mind 2 days later. And all this guff about, it's for defence's purposes only, well, it hasn't affected or hasn't actually caused the Iranians to believe in any of it. Let's be clear about this. If you say, we're not at war, why is it then that Iran has fired missiles at 2 military bases, which are British sovereign territory, on Cyprus and Diego Garcia, and he has causing insurrection here in the UK. As you know, we've got to be controlled in what we say because of sub judice laws. But people have been arrested for certain events, and now there's a whole question about to what degree Iranians have been using the internet and bribes to try and cause insurrection in the UK.
Most definitely, there are also concerns that the Iranian regime is using small boats to get spies onto British soil. It's dark stuff, Sir Michael. Or what about the US president? It seems that he's been stung by Britain's lack of support in the early stages of this war in Iran. Let's take a listen to the leader of the free world.
We're always going to be there, or at least we were. I don't know about anymore, to be honest with you. I have to be honest. We were always there when they needed help. We always would have been there when they needed help. I mean, think of it. We're there to protect Europe from Russia. In theory, it doesn't affect us. We have an ocean, big, fat, beautiful ocean. But we're there to protect NATO, to protect them from Russia. But they're not there to protect us. It's ridiculous. It doesn't make sense.
It seems like the president, Sir Michael, is genuinely hurt by the lack of support from NATO countries, from the European Union, and from Britain.
And from Britain in particular, for two reasons. Firstly, his mother is British, and also he has investments in the United Kingdom, like so many others, including his golf courses, but other investments too. And because he's a man who's interested, I know, in history. He brought back Churchill, for example, the bust of Churchill, into the Oval Office, which had been taken away by Biden and before that by Obama. So he loves the relationship. He loves coming to Britain. He loves the royal family. But he feels betrayed, and I can't blame him. You were talking earlier about what Margaret Thatcher's relationship would have been like with him. I don't think there would have been any doubt whatsoever that Thatcher would have immediately said, of course you can use our bases, which of course is what she did when they struck Libya all those years ago. And they're doing it now anyway. And this is so typical of Keir Starmer. You know, he says one thing and then 2 days later completely reverses it, because they are now using our bases. No, he feels utterly betrayed. Of course, he gets the details wrong. I mean, he was saying we were going to lend a few aircraft carriers and then we didn't. Oh, boy, I live for the days when we might still have lots of aircraft carriers. We've got two, one of which is in dry dock and the other one is somewhere miles away. However, you know, his bitterness is felt very, very strongly. And although they take their time to come to our aid, they do always come to our aid when we need them. And let's face it, we are Anglo-Saxons, as I was saying earlier, like so many in the United States. We speak the same language. I remember going to a law lecture once at the University of Southern California and hearing all about how American law is English law, which is the fount of the legal system, their jurisprudence. So, you know, we share so much in common, the language, the legal system, even the sense of humour. That's one of the reasons, by the way, I was so keen to leave the European Union. To be governed by people in Brussels seemed completely the wrong thing to me.
Sir Michael, a real treat to have you on the show. Thank you for your valuable time.